Hey.
Yeah.
That's a bit optimistic. Just jump back a bit and then we're good to go. How are you all? How are you? Hey, g'day. Yeah. Oh, well, they've always got the place looking good. Audio level, David Crisafulli, testing 1, 2 with Yolonde and Lorenzo. Testing 1, 2, 3. Morning all. We're back in the far north and we're here following another few days of unruly law and order, and particularly on this magnificent esplanade. And I want Queenslanders to know we are serious about putting forward an alternate path in making Queensland safe. We are serious about putting forward solutions to heal the Queensland health crisis. And just now, walking here, a couple just said, please keep going and do something about law and order. And so we are. The issues of housing and health and law and order, they're not new developments to me. There have been things that for the last 2 years Queenslanders have been asking for change, and we have been putting solutions forward about them. This is serious, and Queenslanders deserve to feel safe in their homes and their businesses, and they need to know there are consequences for bad behaviour. And we have put forward our solutions, and it starts with consequences for actions. We must rewrite the Youth Justice Act and put the rights of the victim ahead of the rights of the offender. We must unshackle the judiciary, and that starts with removing the provision that detention must be a last resort in the Youth Justice Act. And thirdly, we have to get serious about early intervention. It has to be gold standard. We have to be serious about turning kids around before they are breaking into businesses without any fear of consequences, before they are holding a knife at somebody's door, and before they are ramming a police car. At the moment, we have a generation of repeat hardcore young offenders that are marauding through communities. They are breaking into businesses, they are breaking into homes, they are terrorising people where they live, work and play, and it has to stop. And my call to the government today is adopt our solutions and start working towards healing the Queensland law and order crisis that is gripping communities right across the state. Yolonde Entsch, our candidate.
Good morning, Yolonde Entsch, LNP Candidate for Cairns. Since 2015, since the Palaszczuk Labor government, break-ins in Cairns have gone up 116%. 116% since 2015. What we need to be doing is putting solutions in place, as David mentioned, but we have women in this community who are fearing for their safety. Women are telling me that that live alone, that they're leaving handbags and keys in the kitchen, on the bench, in highly visible places, so that when their home is broken into, when they're at home on their own, that those people that are breaking in aren't going to come into their rooms. We've got women who are afraid to sleep. I have had a number of people reaching out and sharing their stories with me. Family from Waree just yesterday, 3 were in bed asleep and the mother was on the computer talking to family overseas. 3 youths came in, stole the keys. First thing she knew about it was when she heard her car being reversed out. And people are reporting but not expecting any change.
I might ask Lorenzo to say what happened to the business. Lorenzo, before you just give you a second first and last name and spelling, please.
My name is Lorenzo Lalmon. I work at Limoncello's. We're a small but upcoming business in the Cairns Esplanade. We've been dealing with not just our establishment, but many establishments in the area, repetitive break-ins, vandalism, and more than all, the accountability is not left on the shoulders of the offenders, it's left on the shoulders of the business people. The public have to find their own ways to accommodate and fix these problems, where our hands are tied as hard as the government's apparently. So the accountability at the end of the day is left back to the public and the public have no powers to change anything without the power being changed from the government itself and or the security and police levels in the town with responsibilities and actions that they can proceed to do something about the crime. Not just only in Cairns but all over Queensland at the moment, and in total agreements with Yolonde. It's been going on for far too long. People are too scared to even walk to their cars at the end of the night to go home. It's hard for business owners to protect their own public interest and their staff because of the unlawful and unjust accountabilities that we don't have in place. The repeat offending, at the end of the day, we were broken into just 2 nights ago, and the same offenders walked past the shop with no recall whatsoever, no remorse, and literally just stared us in the face as if to say, ha ha, thank you. And they still walk the street, they still return, and it's on a repetitive basis, every day, all day. And again, not just on the Esplanade of Cairns, but throughout the city centre and in the suburbs as well.
I'm just saying, before after what happened to you the other day, you felt the accountability was on your shoulders apart from the kids that did this. What do you want the state government to do? What should be done to prevent this sort of thing happening to save your business?
Re-establishment of some structure of, again, accountability that these children one way are made to be held responsible, whether it be the children themselves, something to do with the parents. The laws at the end of the day are holding back anybody from being able to protect themselves. If I was to raise my hand, I'd be the first one to be reprimanded or taken away, and they would still walk the street. It's not easy to be able to restrain yourself from wanting to protect what's valuable to yourself and to others, and unfortunately even us, we have to let them walk away.
You're going to send 2 of the offenders to be charged overnight. What's your reaction to that, and what do you want to see done for these?
I'm actually very pleased that 2 of them were charged and picked up, because again, within that day and a half of our incident, they were walking the street and doing exactly the same thing, terrorising another shop, creating havoc in front of the other shop. And it's good to see that they have been reprimanded, even for their age. But the outcome of it, we still don't know what's going to happen as far as what kind of charge they've received and what kind of punishment they will receive after.
Just in terms of like financial impact on the business, I mean, have you sort of been in discussions with Paul about, I mean, what's the future of the business if this stuff continues? Have you considered sort of leaving the CBD?
No, definitely not. We're not easily deterred, and I think one way or another, the public will get together eventually, and there'll be no stopping the public standing up for themselves, and the numbers in voices will matter and it will count, and eventually that's where we'll be heading. We won't have to fight hard, but we will fight strong.
Yeah, what do you estimate it cost you, like the damage to the window, the loss of the alcohol, like, can you put a number figure on it?
Not particularly. Even a couple of grand.
A
couple of grand. We were lucky that we didn't receive physical damage to the establishment, unlike others that have been vandalised, spray painted, shelving's been broken, stock being broken. That's big cost for those businesses, and one especially couldn't even open for 2 days because of the amount of damage that was there. So that not only cost them in repairs, but also in trade for those 2 days. So that's a big loss of money. And when you have to claim insurance, it costs the money, more money for the business again anyway. It's not even though you pay insurance, it's not an easy fix. That one particular shop that I mentioned was an ice cream shop here in the city centre. They were done twice in 1 month. So that's twice that they had to shut down and twice that they had to repair their shop.
Which shop was that? Ben and Jerry's?
No,
Ice cream.
the ice creamery, yeah.
You're saying that you saw the company offenders just like the next day.
Yes.
Just walk past the street like, oh, actually this was like nothing had happened.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like seeing that and then seeing that they haven't been arrested yet and just
Yes.
nothing had been done?
For somebody like me, it was hard to stop myself from actually grabbing them myself and holding them myself until the authorities came. But again, I've got no power to do that. I would have ended up with a charge myself because these guys are adolescents.
So you really think it comes down to early intervention?
Yes. Yep. And
What sort of early intervention is what we can get?
I think it all starts at home, to be honest. When it comes down to it, morals and respect aren't being taught, aren't being maintained, and that's why they roam the streets with no morals and respect.
Thanks, Lorenzo.
Yeah. You feel a sense of helplessness and despair in the eyes of small family business and their staff, and I'm picking that up all the time. The ice cream shop that Lorenzo spoke about, I went there and I listened to Amanda about that. There's a business where not only have they been disrupted from trade, it's tens of thousands of dollars in damage, and she's wondering if she's going to be able to reopen. It can't go on. We cannot live in a society where people are second guessing their safety at home and whether or not they can go to work and have a shift there at their small business. That has to end. We've got to instill confidence back in the community, and it starts with consequences for actions and the kind of early intervention to turn kids around.
What's some early intervention strategies?
Sorry.
Early intervention strategies. Just elaborate a little bit on that.
Look, I think that there is no doubt that there needs to be greater options at sentencing to do that, and I've now seen several across the state that I think make a lot of sense. I was at one just the other night by the name of eSwab that turn around some of the hardest of hard kids before a life of crime sets in. And I met a young bloke there called Taj who told me his story, and he was at the Last Chance Saloon and he was turned around. Now, one thing is for certain, what we're doing at the moment isn't working. And every time the government says we are spending this record amount on these programs, it's ashes in the mouths of people like Lorenzo have been broken into because what we are doing isn't working. So we've written to the Auditor General and we've delighted to know that he's currently putting the blowtorch over those programs. We want to know what's happening at the moment that's not working, what's the stuff that is that we should be doing more of, and where can we look and find the best across the globe to turn kids around before they're holding a knife or before they're ramming a police car. That's what we've got to do. And at the moment that's not happening. What we're doing in Queensland isn't working. And the fact that the percentage of repeat offenders have gone from 10% to 17% in the last very short window, the fact that you've had an increase of more than double in break and enters here in Cairns in the time the government's been in office shows you what is happening at the moment is a broken system, and people deserve a lot better than they're getting.
Is there any specific early intervention strategies that you've seen or that have worked across the board?
I mentioned that the eSwab. I also like there's a company called Men of Business that help particularly boys in grade 10, 11 and 12 and giving them education. I won't rule anything in or out. I just want to know what we're doing can work. And I'm not going to give up on kids and trying to turn them around before a lifetime of crime. And that involves getting in early and showing them hope and giving them help and focusing on education, aspiration, and one day getting them a job. This is important. And there's been a lot of talk in recent days about the crises that are impacting Queenslanders. That's not new news to me. for 2 years Queenslanders have been telling me about this. For 2 years they've been demanding solutions for health and education and housing and law and order. And we've been putting forward solutions. And my suggestion to the government is it's time to start listening and adopting them, because we can't go on with the complete and utter breakdown of frontline services that's happening at the moment in this state.
Yeah, I've got a couple of other
Sure,
questions.
I've got to... You want me to go back to here? Thanks, guys.
I mean, probably just one more on this.
Fire away.
Yeah, we're hearing houses all the time being broken in, cars being broken. This is a restaurant on the main street of Cairns here, Broad Club. There's a police beat just right across the road. Are these kids like crazy now? They're just doing in front of...
You've got a generation of young crims when 8 years ago, when the government watered down the laws, it's a homegrown generation of untouchables in their eyes, and they know that their rights are greater than the rights of the victim. And until you embed consequences for actions and unshackle the judiciary and remove detention as a last resort and get serious about early intervention, this marauding madness will continue.
Just some two other subjects
Yeah.
here. How will you fix the housing crisis, and when will you release some details on policies on it?
Well, there's 3 solutions we've put forward on the housing crisis, and we'd ask the government to adopt them today if they were serious. 1, infrastructure partnerships with councils to be able to open up new opportunities for young kids to buy a home and afford to rent one. 2, partnerships with the community housing sector to unleash that golden opportunity. And 3, dedicated targets for social housing where ministers will be held accountable. There's 3 starts. And I read the Auditor-General's report, and in it, it shows that Queensland has the smallest proportion of social housing per capita in the country. Not one target has been met with social housing over the course of this government over 8 years. There are 33% less lots released today than there were 8 years ago in Queensland, which means there's less chance for a young person to buy a house. So there's some starts. So my message to the government is these are not new problems. Queenslanders have been banging down the government's door for solutions, and we have been listening and putting those solutions forward. It's time for the government to do the same. And after nearly a decade in office, to suggest that these are new problems must really be disheartening for Queenslanders struggling to keep a roof over their head, under siege in their home from law and order, and with a health system crumbling before their eyes.
On the Caboolture murder, there was a DVO, so why have QPS failed another woman? Does the police portfolio need to shake up?
Look, I might. It's extremely sensitive, and I'll just make this point. Women and children deserve to be safe, and as a state, we all need collectively to get serious about the structures in place to keep women and children safe. And it should be a focus of every one of us every day. And I'll probably leave it there.
I guess we had the cabinet reshuffle, I guess, so we've got a new Minister for Justice. Is this going to be the problem? Is this going to solve the problem?
Look, Frank, my focus has to be on holding the government accountable, but also charting a different course forward. And Queenslanders want to know that there is a different way than the chaos and crisis they're experiencing now. And I can pick that people are really wanting calm and considered leadership and an end to the chaos and crisis. And that's what Queenslanders deserve and what they expect. And that's got to be my focus. My focus has got to be the same things that I put forward over 2 years ago: an economy built on the back of small and family business and the people who work for them, less regulation and less taxation, so this bloke can go to work and make a living. We've got to get serious about service delivery, so when you pick up a phone, an AMBO will turn up and not be stuck at the end of an ED that's falling apart, that there are more police, not the cuts that we've seen, and that they've got the laws to back them up, that a young person can afford to buy or rent a home in the city that they want to live or the region that they call home, that national parks will get managed, and thirdly, to bring integrity back to government. They're my 3 focuses. So I've seen the circus, I've seen the chaos, I've seen the crisis unfolding out of George Street, and I'm not going to buy into it. I'm just offering people calm and considered leadership. Thanks. Hey,
Can I ask you a question?
of course.
2 or 3 or 5?
Yeah, well, let's step over. We all done? Righto. Yeah.